Well, good evening, everyone. I'm California State Senator Dave Cortese, and I'm here to welcome you and make a few brief remarks at this Wildfire Safety and Mitigation Town Hall. We thought this was an important thing to do in this manner. Oftentimes, we'll do topics in town hall meetings, in particular geographic locations in the district. But the Senate district has 1 million people and multiple cities involved, and we thought it would be better access for everyone, probably a little more affordable than driving to a central location if we could just do this way. So thank you for participating and helping us make this a success. I'm sure it will be. Um, we are likely to have some special guests on here, as participants. Everybody is special to us. This is really set up for um, people, working people, average people, just neighborhood people, people like most of you. We may have a dignitary or two join us. If that happens, we'll do our best to try to acknowledge them along the way. The webinar itself is going to feature a presentation from panelists who I'm going to introduce you to very shortly. And after that presentation, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers, like a question answer period. So I'm going to try to be efficient with my remarks to help save time for the end. And I know the panelists are very well versed in doing this, so they'll be efficient as well. Since it is a Zoom webinar, you'll be able to submit your question into the Zoom chat. So that's the way we're going to do it, in case you're wondering. At any point during the town hall, you can just, as you think of a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. My staff, particularly Zach Contini, will keep track of those, and then he's going to lead the discussion on those questions that are in the chat, get them to the experts, obviously get it to me if somebody's asking a question for me as an elected official. If you don't get your question into the chat and answered, for example, we run out of time or something like that, I want you to make sure that you email your question into us so we can turn around a quick answer for you, hopefully tomorrow or Monday at the latest. Zach, if he hasn't done so already, I'm sure we'll put the email address in the chat room. There we go. And that's the person to send them to. So he'll make sure that we turn those questions around, even if we have to get a question answered from somebody in a state department or state agency, for example. Well, there's two issues that are really very intertwined. We're not focusing a lot on the home insurance side of wildfire safety and mitigation. I mean, basically, as we all know, it's we have an insurance crisis kind of tracking what's going on with the crisis that we've been facing year round now with fire. There will be some reference to it. In fact, one of the bills I'll mention here in a few minutes really focuses on trying to protect you as consumers in terms of the availability of public information regarding the establishment of risk for fire insurance premiums. And that is a bill I'm a sole author of. I'm also going to mention in a few minutes a whole series of bills. We're going to go quickly. We can provide that information to you in more detail later as well. But I want to make sure to leave you with the correct impression that the state has done a lot over the last few years, and even just through this last budget adoption with regard to this topic. So the panelists, we have Seth Chalette, CEO of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. I have had him present to large groups of senators in the state capitol. I can assure you he is very good at this, and you'll be pleased. Amanda Brenner Cannon, Program Director of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, who is very familiar with the full range, literally and figuratively, of the environment in our own county. whether it's the coastal range on the east or the Santa Cruz Mountain Range on the other side. I just saw her last weekend um, back at the Range Association, an hour's drive from the valley. So it gives you an idea about her commitment and expertise. She's going to speak on pre-fire management and wildfire resilience. All experts, all of them are experts in the field of fire safety and mitigation. We're excited that they'll be partnering up with us today at the event. I know we have one additional expert with us today, and I'm going to let him self-introduce when the time comes, or I'll let him segue from Seth and Amanda. And let me just now speak to why we're doing this in the first place. It's so important. I think everyone knows now what I alluded to just a few minutes ago. We no longer have a fire season. We just have year-round intense fire risk. And that's a combination of climate change. And change in the climate is real. People can debate all day long what's causing the change, what's causing climate change, but there's no question that it's occurring. And what it's creating in part is a very different type of drought situation in this state. In fact, as you know, we'll have long periods of droughts and then suddenly torrential rains and then back to drought again. That creates a whole different situation in terms of not only fire risk, but the propensity for fires with fuel available for fires basically year round. And we saw what happened precisely because of those reasons in Los Angeles. Who would have ever expected Los Angeles to burn in January? I understand Los Angeles doesn't have seasons like other places in the country, but nevertheless, that is not what you would have expected even 5, 10, 15 years ago. So this is a big issue. It's a big issue here at home. All you have to do is think back to the 2020 timeframe when we had the so-called CZU and SCU complex fires. I was a county supervisor at the time, just getting ready to go to the state senate, and I learned lessons firsthand from those fires. I'm sure many of you did as well. But some of the lessons I learned was that the state really wasn't prepared for the number, the quantity, and the massive nature of fires up and down the state happening simultaneously during that period of time. It was an unbelievable onslaught of fires. I think most of you remember that. But right here at home, we had what ended up being one of the largest fires in the history of the state start down near Milpitas in the Calaveras area and end up near Highway 152, Pacheco Pass, and burn just thousands and thousands of acres east of San Jose. That hit close to home because some property that my extended family owns back in the cattle range area burned, and no one had ever seen anything like that in the last 50 or 60 years, certainly in my lifetime. But Santa Cruz knows that range, and of course, some of the very populated areas in the Santa Cruz Mountain Range, all the way over to the border of the city of Santa Cruz itself, were either burning or under threat at the same time. And I was told by our county chief at the time, while we were looking at a heat map during that fire, that one shift of wind during one of those evenings that we were tracking the fire would have easily pushed it down into places like the village's retirement community in Evergreen, which is built right up into the East Foothills, or the entire town of Saratoga. And there wasn't enough equipment in those days. Just a few years ago, there weren't enough tankers, there wasn't enough personnel, there really wasn't enough equipment to fully staff those two fires and equip those two fires in terms of battling the fires. And so equipment was being moved back and forth. It was only through the tremendous expertise of the fire agencies and fire personnel, that we survived that we didn't end up having to evacuate, large municipal areas here, similar to what you saw in Los Angeles. So what's happened since then? What have we done to try to deal with that? Over the last few years, we've worked together with the governor's office on legislation through the budget on this issue, starting in the 2021-2022 budget year. We invested $2.7 billion over 4 years in strengthening forest wildfire resilience. CAL FIRE's budget has been increased by 47% currently compared to 2018 in recognition of the very danger I was just talking about and the experience that we had. Obviously, further investment needed to be made. We've accelerated the use of a multitude of fire mitigation strategies, including prescribed burns. And if you track what's going on, even around here in the Mount Hamilton range, east of where I live, you get notices about those prescribed burns. They're happening, but they're now happening up and down the state as best as possible. There's work that's been done with the tribes going back to 2021 to continue the cultural practice of tribal burning. There's been an investment that we've made in expanding the ability of the state to do its own prescribed burn, separate and apart from what's going on locally. We've invested in expanding the ability of the state to do that, but also to increase the amount of total acreage that is under that type of management now. And I think we're getting to the point of really maximizing what we can do there. If you look back to the last couple of years, back to 2023, we've allocated funding towards CAL FIRE hand crews, which is a huge investment and a needed one. And we've invested in expanding the aerial fleet of CAL FIRE. That was one of the weaknesses when we had the CZU, SCU fires and other fires simultaneously were up and down the state. CAL FIRE now has the largest such fleet in the world, not just in the country, but in the world. And that's your taxpayer dollars at work. And I wanted to make sure to get that across today, that just in the last 4.5 years or so, those significant investments have been made. We passed something called AB 100, which was a special budget bill earlier in the year. And that overall budget bill moved money immediately into fire response and resilience. Part of that was a response to Los Angeles. But Proposition 4, which all of you approved, another big thank you to the taxpayers, to the voters. Prop 4 passed in the last election cycle, and there's $181 million there going toward fire mitigation. We have a total of $1.5 billion in Prop 4 from you, the taxpayers, that'll be allocated toward wildfire resilience overall, not just in this particular budget year. This effort continues the ongoing investments in fire mitigation, and hopefully that gives you the realization and hopefully the accurate impression that we haven't been sitting on our hands the last few years. We've been making very targeted investments. One of those, which I'm very proud of, just happened. It was just fully funded a week ago in the budget. We converted 3,000 part-time CAL FIRE firefighters into full-time positions. That would be the equivalent of staffing 356 engine crews. That was deemed an urgent action, and that's why we put that legislation right into the Budget Act. And it's there now. It's funded now. Remember, if you're wondering why would we have part-time firefighters, especially 3,000 of them in CAL FIRE, why wouldn't they be full-time in the first place? Again, that's easy to say now, but for years and years and decades, we had a very seasonal climate, a very seasonal fire season, and it wasn't necessary, so it wasn't deemed necessary to have firefighters in every firehouse up and down the state all year round. What to do, in the wintertime? Well, now we know wintertime is fire season as well. Other actions still underway: protection for fire victims of wildfire, those impacted by emergency declarations in their areas. There's about a half dozen bills dealing with that issue in the legislature moving right now. Bills to speed up rebuilds of homes are moving through the legislature right now, including SB 625. We're better able to quantify and evaluate fire mitigation work through the state fire marshal's office. That's SB 326, a bill that I personally authored. And let me just add, I co-authored most of the bills that I'm mentioning to you right now, but I'm primary author of SB 429. If you want to Google that at some point after the webinar, you'll see that for the first time, the state itself will run what we call a CAP model, a catastrophe model that's independently generated by universities here in California, who will then be able to put up on a screen, just like the one you're looking at right now, the calculations, the risk analysis for your own home, for your own property, the same kind of information that the insurance companies are looking at, except the insurance company's information is private, is proprietary. They don't make that public, just like most businesses don't make their analytical work public. We know that the state has never had the ability to generate its own risk analysis for purposes of establishing insurance costs, insurance premiums. I'm not talking about just simple fire risk. CAL FIRE does that. They do a good job of that. I think all of our fire agencies, except the most urban ones, are very involved in that practice. I'm talking about a model that will be permanently available to you at the state, which will let you match up what you're hearing from your insurance company in terms of the insurability of your home with what the state of California says should be the insurability of your home. A little checks and balances is what we're doing. I'm sorry to go on so long, but I wanted to give you the feel for the progress that's been made. Certainly there's more to do. Certainly we want to hear from all of you today and beyond today is what more you'd like to see us do. But for now, I want to pass it along to Seth, who will introduce you to the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council and all the great work they do locally. Seth, Amanda, and we do have Chief Thornton, as I started to say earlier. They're all present. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator Cortese, for that interesting background and synopsis of the legislation year that was. And I also just wanted to say a thanks. You and I have worked together, not just from your time on the San Jose City Council, but from your time on the Santa Clara County Board of Directors. And we're grateful because you have been a stalwart supporter, not just of the Fire Safe Council, but more importantly, legislation around wildfire risk mitigation, disaster mitigation, earthquake mitigation. And I know this is something that you're committed to and you take seriously. And I just want to thank you for the longstanding partnership. And again, my name is Seth Shallett. I'm the CEO of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and I'm joined by my partner tonight, Program Director Amanda Brennan-Cannon. And I want to start off with a brief history of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. What are the Fire Safe Councils? You know, when I talk to people throughout the state, one of the things I often hear is, well, tell me about the Fire Safe Council. What do you really do? How are you different from CAL FIRE? How are you different from my local fire service agency? So I want to give you a brief insight to what the Fire Safe Council statewide does, what's unique about the Fire Safe Council. I'll do a brief snapshot of our current Fire Safe Council projects, but I'll leave it to Amanda, who's really on the ground day to day, managing the team on these projects, to go into a little bit more detail. And then we'll share more about your programs. And most importantly, what we want to take away from today is we'd like your engagement with the Fire Safe Council. We are a grassroots, community-led organization, a 501c3 nonprofit. So for those of you that are joining us on this town hall webinar tonight, we hope to have more ongoing engagement with you to get involved in community level risk reduction. Next slide, please. So real simple. Back up for a second, Zach, because I think this is important. We try to live our mission statement. And our mission statement really is to mobilize the people of Santa Clara County to protect their homes, communities, and environment from wildfire. And it's not just a plaque that we have hanging on our wall in our offices. It's something that we really live and breathe. Our staff were made up of San Jose State graduates in environmental science, former retired CAL FIRE and fire agency personnel with deep background in wildfire, prescribed fire that Senator Cortese talked about earlier. So we've got a rich fabric of people, most of whom live in Santa Clara County, some on the border of Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County. So we're all committed to doing our best for Santa Clara County. Next slide, please. And thank you, Zach. Just wanted to put this up here because I think everybody remembers this day. And I think this day is seared, certainly in my mind. And what I want to bring to your attention with this day is this, unfortunately, is more likely to be our new normal, perhaps not as extreme on this specific day, but we know that the evidence and the science says that wildfires, particularly here in California and in the Pacific Northwest, will continue in frequency. Historically, they've been growing larger in size, and we'll talk about that. More acres are being consumed by wildfire today than they were on average 20 or 30 years ago. And wildfire smoke. You know, there's a warning out today, an air quality warning. We expect to have wildfire smoke in the Bay Area from some of the other fires happening in the northern part of the state. But concurrently, we're going to see wildfire smoke and wildfires from the Pacific Northwest make their way down here, smoke from Canada. So it really is going to impact all of us. And I hope this slide brings part of it home for each of you. Next slide, please. Look, the data is clear. There's a lot of articles that you can look at from the Mercury News or articles and research information I'm glad to make available to Senator Cortese's staff. But the wildfire threat is clearly increasing. It's not only increasing in size, but more importantly, today, as opposed to 20 years ago, and I'm sure Skylar will touch on this as well, fires are running faster, meaning they're eating more acreage quickly, and they're growing hotter than they were a generation ago. Hotter fires tend to be more destructive. They can and often do burn faster. So it's really important that we together as a community do our part in community level risk reduction, but also learn about wildfire, learn about evacuation, learn about fire-wise communities. And these are some of the things we hope to get across to you today. Next slide, please. So about fire safe councils in general. So we are the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and in that role, we are responsible for the entirety of Santa Clara County. And we have programs that cover the bulk of Santa Clara County, but a little bit about the Fire Safe Council. So back in the day, it was actually started as a department or a program, more appropriately, a program of CAL FIRE back around 1993. In and around 2002, it became an independent 503c entity, not part of California, not part of CAL FIRE any longer. And today, we have roughly 250 to 300 fire safe councils throughout the state of California. So there's quite a number of them. The majority are volunteer-led organizations, and they may focus very tightly in their local community around things like chipping services, perhaps home hardening support, perhaps doing HIZs, a home inspection zone services. Most of them are volunteer-led. Where the Fire Safe Council is unique, while we are close to being the largest in terms of revenue, and last year we did about $6.7 million in revenue, mostly funded by CAL FIRE grants and our technology program, we've got a team of about 15 full and part-time personnel. So we engage, and Amanda will talk about our new volunteer program, but what's unique about our staff is we have the capacity and do work all year round. We partner very closely with CAL FIRE and all the local fire agencies. What's also unique about the California Fire Safe Council in general is our board, and I am fortunate to be one of the newest members on the board over the last year and a half. We're comprised of former state fire marshals, current CAL FIRE senior leaders, people such as the risk director and risk preparation director for PG&E. So we've got a real skilled board that really is focused on legislation, advocating for needs across the state. And I'm glad Senator Cortese at the start of this talked about a lot of the legislative activity. I serve on the State Board's Legislative Committee, and I can say, and I want to thank the legislative members, in the budget this year, we have further approval for what we call the California Fire Safe Council County Coordinator Program, $9.6 million of additional funding statewide for the California County Coordinator Program. Amanda will talk more about that. We are the county coordinator. We currently have 48 out of the 58 counties across the state have a county coordinator, but with this additional funding, we hope to have each county, all 58, have a county coordinator within the next year. What we really do is we manage at the state level in the California Fire Safe Council. Some people have called it a clearinghouse, but historically we've managed the grant distribution for CAL FIRE, for the pass-through fire programs from the U.S. Forest Service, and we've managed over $100 million a year in grant funding statewide, dispersing that funding, reporting on the efficacy and the use of that funding. But more importantly, now at the state level, we're starting to introduce our own programs. So no longer are we just a pass-through entity, but over the next coming years, we're going to be introducing programs that will be available specifically to us in Santa Clara County, where we can offer new programs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Next slide, please. I put on this slide, and I'm not going to click on each of these, but you will have these slides after the webinar. I know that they'll go out along with a recording of the webinar, but you can click on each of these links here, and it'll take you to our website and specifically the details about each of these particular programs. As Amanda mentioned, we serve as the Community Wildfire Protection Plan Manager for Santa Clara County. Amanda and her team work on updating the CWPP in concert with CAL FIRE and in concert with all of the fire service agencies in Santa Clara County. And in fact, tomorrow we're going to be doing a tour of the work we've done on Mount Madonna and some of our escape routes. But here's just a smattering of examples. We've done quite a bit of work in the South County, but we want to do more. And we've got programs and plans to be more engaged in the South County, and Amanda will talk more about that later today. Next slide, please. So I wanted to show you, you probably are all aware, and there probably will be questions tonight on some of the new hazard mitigation plans and hazard mitigation maps that were recently introduced. I want just to have a quick picture here. I think it should be somewhat obvious, but if you look at the yellow to red throughout the county area, this is where, according to the recent work done by CAL FIRE and other mapping entities, this is where you see the higher risk, high and very high fire zone communities. And unfortunately, in Senator Cortese's district, District 15, we do have a fair amount of high and very high wildfire zones. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means to you as individuals and the responsibility we have at the individual homeowner level or at the HOA level and at the neighborhood level to help reduce that risk. Next slide, please. So when we think of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, I think of it as a wheel, and we're now developing programs so that we can effectively engage with our community partners, our towns, our city partners, and our fire service agency partners in each of these areas. In the preparation, that means pre-preparing for wildfire. And as Senator Cortese really said, you know, there used to be a wildfire season, but a lot of the evidence, and there's a lot of clear research I can make available, you know, fire season is starting maybe 8 weeks earlier than it did in 1970, and it's lasting 8 to 9 weeks longer than it did on average in 1970. So we really do have a wildfire year. It's no longer contained to 6 or 7 months. and that means there's a lot of activity that we need to do. The Fire Safe Council is really involved in the early detection. About 2 years ago, we started a wildfire technology practice where we work with our partners, the fire service agencies, the towns and municipalities. We have about a half a dozen products that we resell, and we work with our partners to pilot test new wildfire technologies, determine what might work, what won't work, and for those technologies that do work, how do we bring them throughout Santa Clara County at scale and help our fire service partners do that. And some of that is on the prediction side of the equation. We've got a lot of artificial intelligence and AI and machine learning tools. And look, I think there's a lot of hype. We're here in Silicon Valley, so we probably hear the word AI 30 to 50 times a day, but there's really a lot of great early stage and mid-stage technology today that wasn't in existence 20 years ago. And it's our job at the Fire Safe Council to help make that technology available to our partners. We do a lot of work on the evacuation side. We work with all of our agency partners and our town partners. We have a product that sits and partners with Genesis, which is the countywide evacuation system. And it's a product that can sit on top of Genesis, and it has algorithm capabilities to, in real time, adjust traffic flow, manage and predict fire spread analytics. We work obviously on the protection side. We do a lot with hazardous fuel reduction programs, evacuation routes, many of which we've done in the South County, and we're going to amp up our capabilities on the restorative side. So historically, we have not done a lot in what we would call post-wildfire reconstruction, but we want to have capabilities on all of these programs within the wheel so that we can be a full service agency to all of our partners in Santa Clara County. Next slide, please. A couple of things here, just some shots of press releases. These really show some of the relationships we've built over the last 2.5 years. I mentioned earlier, we've got about 6 or 7 active contracts and partnerships. So the key takeaway here for those in the audience is we want to be focused not just on traditional risk reduction metrics, but we want to leverage our Silicon Valley roots, work with Silicon Valley-based companies and companies outside of Silicon Valley, even international companies. There's a lot of really terrific work happening in Asia and in Europe on early wildfire detection and other aspects. And my job for the Fire Safe Council is to keep abreast of that information and, where possible, bring some of that in for us to pilot test.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome.
Very, very good job. And I'm always amazed at how rapid fire you can go through all of that material. I wish I had that talent. My constituents probably wish that as well. It keeps things moving a little more quickly. Look, I can't add a lot, to what you said. When I mentioned the funding, you heard those numbers. It's tremendously up, virtually doubled. In the case of CAL FIRE, which is the primary state entity, and those bills I was talking about, there's more than a dozen bills. At last count, about 14 of them, which are either already adopted or very close to getting to the governor's desk right now. So this is all a huge priority for the state of California. You can tell by the investment in the fire safe councils that Seth was talking about, that they haven't been ignored either, that we understand, the governor understands how important it is to have people like Seth available. If not, we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now, helping hopefully to educate the public. I don't want to jump ahead to questions. I know there's already some questions in the chat, but we're aware of that, and we'll get to those after we hear from Amanda. Thank you.
You're welcome. And let me just wrap up. I think we can move forward, and I'll introduce Amanda. But to your point, I know from my involvement on the legislative committee, in the current budget, they allocated $30 million specifically for technology expenditures. As I understand it, $10 million for additional Alert California wildfire cameras throughout the state, $10 million for autonomous vehicles, whether they're from rain or autonomous Black Hawk helicopters and drone technology, and another $10 million across a smattering of other wildfire technologies. So I just want to thank you, Senator, and the legislators for that stalwart commitment on wildfire technology. And I think without further ado, let me turn it over to Amanda Brenner-Cannon.
All right, well, I think that's my cue. Hi, everyone. As Seth mentioned, my name is Amanda Brenner-Cannon. I am the program director for the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and we'll go through a little bit more about the programs and projects that we're doing. So first, I will say that we are going, I'm very happy to have Chief Thornton here. So I'm going to talk a little bit, as Seth just talked about, who the Fire Safe Council is, what fire safe councils do. I'm going to take that down a little bit more and talk about some of the projects that we're currently doing in District 15. Some of these projects have actually just wrapped up. We are in the middle of operation season, so you've probably been stopped on the road or have had some traffic control slow you down. Please be patient with us because we're working on wildfire prevention and fuels reduction projects to make our communities safer. So some of the projects that we have funded are either completed, in the middle of being completed, or they're going to be completed this year. And we're currently seeking funding to do more project work in the coming years, 2026, 2027. We are a nonprofit, so most of our projects are grant funded. So a lot of what you'll see here is funded by CAL FIRE. And then some other projects are also funded by the U.S. Forest Service. So we'll talk about projects, and then I'll hand it over to Chief Thornton, and then we'll talk about some of the programs that the Fire Safe Council offers to help support the work that you're doing on an individual level or a community level so that you can take action and work toward better wildfire preparedness in your community. So we have a few, fire safe councils wear a lot of hats, as you can tell by Seth's presentation. He really works very closely with Senator Cortese and others to bring these issues on a higher level, to get bills through, to get greater funding. And then I work with the community to gain better understanding of what you can do, get funding to do projects and things like that. So we look at different types of work, such as forest health, where we're creating more resilient communities through forest health treatments. Mostly right now, we are working toward better initiatives, bigger initiatives in the Diablo Mountains on the east side of the county. But currently we have some pretty large initiatives to create better forest health conditions in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We have a collaborative called the Los Gatos Creek Watershed Collaborative that has been growing over the past couple of years. We've treated over 1,000 acres between Mid-Peninsula Open Space Authority land, county parks, San Jose Water, and some private entities, some private landowners. And we're looking at, some of the funding that we have right now with CAL FIRE to bring that to closer to 2,000 acres in the next year or so. And, we've got initiatives, the one that I'm about to talk about, that we are calling West Santa Clara Landscape Resilience Project. So all of the projects that we do with government funding requires CEQA. So that's the California Environmental Quality Act. And through that, all the projects that we get completed, get this CEQA compliance. So we're working on a landscape level to get this legal compliance completed throughout the Santa Cruz Mountains. And that's going to further our success in treating more acres and creating better forest resilience in that geography. And we're starting and talking to partners on the east side of the county to hopefully mirror that in the coming future. So we can do the same kind of work on the east side of the county in the Diablos as we're doing in Santa Cruz. So we also do fuels reduction projects. It's very different than sort of forest health resilience kind of things. where we really focus on, well, what are the evacuation routes? What does your egress and ingress look like in a wildfire event? So we've got projects that were complete. Well, we just completed, as Seth mentioned, along Madonna Summit Road area. Some of you in Morgan Hill might have noticed us doing work along East Dunn last year, and we're completing a project this fall that will have fuels reduction. So removing hazardous limbs, grasses, trees from Henry Co. down to the communities leading into Morgan Hill along East Dunn. We completed a couple of projects recently, one in Loma Chiquita and one in Aldercroft Heights. And we've got some initiatives that we're planning to expand support in that in those communities in that area in the next year or two. So stay tuned on our website. We always have our projects. I know that there will be some links to our project lists. We post everything in our e-news, so please subscribe and on our website as well. And then the big one is the update and maintenance of our CWPP. So the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. It's a guiding document. It allows the Fire Safe Council, all of our partners, everybody doing wildfire preparedness and resilience work in the county to come together and make plans and have some sort of guide so that we have success for preparing for before, during, and after a wildfire. And then I really would like Seth to speak on this last project that I have here. So our partnership that we are just entering into with NASA Ames. Seth?
Yeah, I'll take a quick second. Thank you, Amanda. I think, and I could make the article that was recently in the Mercury News available to Zach for distribution, but we've engaged NASA. They've created a really interesting capability to potentially analyze and assess the embers that are most at risk for igniting wildfires. Real quickly, I think everybody knows that what happened in LA back in January was really an ember storm. And we know that embers cause spot fires, and we know that embers cause roughly 90% of the ignitions and home ignitions resulting from a wildfire. So we've got a partnership with NASA to test this technology out. And if it's effective, we're going to apply it throughout Santa Clara County so that we can work with our partners to determine where we should do treatments that would most reduce ember risk. And I'll pop something in the chat that you can all save from tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Seth. And to cap this slide off before moving on to Chief Thornton, I just really want to thank all of our partners and reiterate that this is a big problem or a big issue, and we're all working together between planning and seeking funds and doing project work and providing education opportunities such as this. I have a lot of faith in Santa Clara County and the work that we're all doing to come together.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Senator Cortese, for the opportunity to present today. My name is Skylar Thornton. I'm a battalion chief with Santa Clara County Fire Department. I oversee the pre-fire management and wildfire resilience component for Santa Clara County Fire Department. We partner quite regularly with the Fire Safe Council and with other local jurisdictions, as well as our state partners at CAL FIRE for fire mitigation, all hazard risk response. And today we're going to I will focus on our home hardening and some educational background on Zone 0, Zone 1, and Zone 2, the new state fire marshal directives for the borders around everybody's residences, as we're seeing the recoveries from a number of large fires in the last 10 plus years. Just briefly about Santa Clara County Fire, we cover the west side of Santa Clara County from the Page Mill Road area bordering Palo Alto, Campbell, Cupertino, Los Altos Hills, Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, Saratoga, and unincorporated Santa Clara County, South County around the city of Morgan Hill and Gilroy. So all the way down to Dinosaur Point area on Pacheco Pass and the top of Mount Madonna. So let's get into my presentation. I will try to keep it somewhat brief and direct so that we can save some room for questions. And as I transition into this, I would like to also for Zach to put into the chat to put our website, sccfd.org, our education and preparedness tab and wildfire tabs both have all of this information plus a wealth of other information regarding ready, set, go, home hardening, and preparedness. And then also from CAL FIRE's website, readyforwildfire.org. That is another excellent source for people to take a deeper dive into getting their homes and properties prepared for wildfire. So with that, just briefly, the three types of fire exposure that people's homes will have is number one, direct flame contact shown in the picture where fire burns right up to the house and catches the house on fire. The second one, which is very common and what we saw down in Southern California, is the embers that are blowing from both houses and vegetation that's on fire, fueled by strong winds that blow the embers a half a mile to a mile or more out in advance of the fire, causing structures and spot fires to turn into, as we saw down south, area conflagration. And then the third one is radiant heat, where you have one structure radiating heat across an airspace, and then that heat is transmitted to another structure and causes it to catch on fire. Those are the three ways that fires transmit for our built environment. And then let's move into some home hardening things and targets of opportunity on the next slide regarding targeted ways that people can make improvements on their homes. Class A roofs, we recommend asphalt shingles, metal roofs, tile roofs, slate roofs, all fire resistive, which provide you the best opportunity to keep your home resilient, keeping your gutters covered and cleaned, having your siding intact that is fire resistant, preferably a stucco siding. If you have wood siding, keeping a solid paint barrier on that. Double or triple pane windows are the best practice because those provide the most insulation from radiant heat as fire front comes through. Ensuring that your vents are covered to 1/16 to 1/8 inch openings at the maximum to prevent fire brands from blowing into your attic space and then transmitting fire into the interior of your attic. Having eaves and fascia boards intact and closed up tightly and sealed so that we don't have fire brands again blowing into those interior spaces where they can then be fanned by winds blowing through the area. And finally, having fire resistant decks and having skirting around the underside of the deck so that wind can't blow up underneath and swirl and cause fire brands to build up in a corner and then transmit fire. Let's move on to some other home hardening photographs. Here we have some pictures of the vents in the upper left, the skirting around a deck enclosure on the lower left, gutters that are clean versus dirty gutters, the Class A roofs on the bottom center, and then windows and siding areas that can be improved and sealed up tight with caulking and other materials. Next slide, please. As we move into the new Zone 0 rules, these are the 0 to 5 foot barrier where the new best practice is to have no combustible materials within the first 5 feet of your home. So that means no bark, no mulch, no plants, that sort of thing. Then we will move out to the Zone 1 area, and that area will be the 5 to 30 foot area. Let's go to the next slide and show you some some options for zone 0. As you see, concrete, obviously not flammable. If you look in the lower left corner, we have trash cans that are kept in close to the house. Oftentimes we see on the 4th of July, and we had these responses, as did other agencies around us, for people who put fireworks or coals into their combustible plastic garbage cans before things were cooled down and they caught on fire. So you want to always ensure that if you're putting burn material into those containers, that it's cold and not going to smolder and catch on fire. As we go around these pictures, the bottom center shows concrete, rock, and hardscape. That is, the new best practice standard for changing people's mindset for how we landscape around our homes. And then as we look in the upper right picture, you see the fence that's burned on the bottom transmitting to the metal gate. The metal gate provides a great fuel break between a flammable wood fence and a structure. So the new recommendation is that people who have wood fences that abut their home, that they look to replace that wood gate with a metal gate, so that you have an opportunity to have that small scale fuel break that can make the difference between saving your home and losing your home. And then in the bottom right, another picture of keeping that area clear and well watered and manicured, so that you don't have fire with the ability to move right up against your home and transmit to your home. Next slide, please. So the zone 1, 5 feet to 30 feet out, keep it lean and clean and green. That is, take care of your vegetation that you have planted, and clean the understory. If you have trees in that area, consider limbing them up to about 6 feet off the ground, so that if you have shrubbery, it doesn't work its way up as a ladder fuel into the trees and then cause firebrands to then have a better opportunity to catch into the wind and transmit fire across your property and potentially to a adjoining residence, structure, or exposure. Next slide, please. Here are some examples of zone 0 and zone 1 for some differences. You'll see on the left, there are a lot of plant materials and the decking right up against the structure on that left side picture, whereas on the right, they have a much better hardscape zone 0 landscape component. And we're really trying to change people's mindset as we roll out these new changes to get away from the kind of Sunset Magazine landscaping that we're accustomed to and move towards something that's going to be more resilient and still attractive, so that people are proud of their homes and their landscaping, and yet we're making things safer for everyone. Next slide. So here's our zone 2 from 30 feet out to your property line, and we're wanting to reduce those fuel loads, thinning trees if possible. We're wanting to limb those trees up to at least 6 feet up, keep the weeds down. As you're familiar with, if you live out in the wildland area, you're mandated to keep your weeds mowed on your property. So there's your best practice. If you have a propane tank, make sure that you have clearance around that tank, so that you don't have any chances of accumulated flammable materials around that tank that can then cause that exposure, the tank to overheat and cause us additional problems. Next slide, please. And so I want to thank our Fire Safe Council folks for their partnership with a number of projects that we collaborate on. I'm in contact with both Amanda and Seth on just about a weekly basis. And I want to take the opportunity to encourage people to get to know your community members, explore Firewise communities, community ratings as an opportunity to build community within your local area. NFPA has a whole program that is available for Firewise communities that the Fire Safe Council has a liaison that can help walk areas through gaining this accreditation that will help you create resilience for your area. Happy to answer any questions about that or direct you to the Fire Safe Council website as well for information on that. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their attention, and I think we can move into some Q&A time.
Zach, we'll turn it back over to you for questions and answers. I know you have some questions in the chat room that, or in the Q&A room. We have a Q&A room available, and some of those are pertinent to today's discussion. And for this set of panelists, I'm happy to respond to anything I can respond to. I do want to note, I think there was a question about fire hydrants and maintenance fire hydrants and who's responsible and how do you get action if you think there's a maintenance issue or just a lack of functionality. And I suspect that question is motivated at least in part by the reports from Los Angeles that were at least a particular neighborhood where there was some breakdown there. There was a lack of water at the hydrants. The short answers to your question kind of go like this. There are several fire hydrant providers, owners. Because we have several utility companies here in this area. San Jose Water is one of the utilities that covers, it's a private utility. It's not the city of San Jose that covers most of San Jose. But in certain areas like Evergreen, for example, so-called City District 8, where there's over 100,000 population, that's entirely served by San Jose Municipal Water Company, which serves hardly any other area of the city of San Jose. We have Great Oaks in South San Jose, and so on. So what I would suggest is, and I know people don't like to elevate an issue like a fire hydrant that's leaking or maybe appears to be just the opposite. It's open and there's no water coming out, whatever you suspect. I know you hate to elevate it to an elected official. You're always welcome to call us or email us at the Senate District 15 district office. That's the group that's running this town hall today. And this is on any issue, but particularly an issue like that. We will take that report and run with it and find out how to get some very quick accountability and a check. To my knowledge, especially the large private utility companies do not do any kind of real proactive checking on those hydrants. They do have vendors sometimes who take water from those hydrants, and I think they get a report in that manner. I would defer now to our fire official if he knows of any other government related inspection. Obviously, it's a huge and massive undertaking to be just routinely, kind of checking them. But understand, to my knowledge, again, I'll defer to fire here. I don't know that we've ever had any significant reports. I think someone asked a question because they actually did run into that problem, the maintenance issue in their own neighborhood. But it's certainly not something that we've ever seen in my years as an elected official as widespread. Nevertheless, I know if there's a fire and the hydrant doesn't work and it's in Senate District 15, that I'm going to be held accountable for that. So I just as soon have you call me and let me track down the proper government officials to check that out immediately. And I'm sure to some degree our fire officials feel the same way. Call them if you don't call me, and let them get right on it.
I can add to your answer, Senator. For specifically Santa Clara County Fire Department, we have historically inspected our 7,000 plus hydrants annually. We also have a system in place to communicate with both San Jose Water and California Water Service to identify any deficient hydrants and report those to the appropriate agencies repair section and get those on a list for whatever the targeted maintenance or repair is that's required. We will be looking at pivoting, and with the addition of South County, we'll be working on plans to determine how we can cyclically add the additional hydrants in those areas to our inspection, whether that's annually or biannually or triannually, in terms of capturing all of those data points and then getting those reports to the appropriate agencies.
Just to add to that, again, keep the dialogue going here a little bit. Santa Clara County Fire, as represented here today, is largely the unincorporated areas and pockets of non-municipal areas. Primarily, that's a lot of fire hydrants, and I wasn't even aware myself that you had those on an annual cycle. That's great news. But as I always say about constituent issues, if you're not sure, and we would expect you to be not sure, it's not your job. If you're a homeowner or a renter living in the district, call us. Just call us and go to work, go about your business, take your kids to school, and let our team track it down. We have Suzanne Wheaton in the office, our district director, Zach Contini, who you're going to hear from in a moment, Megan Betty, Phung Nguyen, who speaks Vietnamese fluently, Beth Willon, our communications person, Mario Lopez, who speaks Spanish fluently, Ava Gonzalez, an intern, and Daniel Bieber, an intern. They're all at your service like customer service, and they're not going to sit on that. They're going to get a hold of, and this probably the fire agencies immediately and try to figure out, who's on first and who's responsible. I got to believe if you called county fire instead and then went to work, they would do the same thing, track it down and get back to you. Just don't ever hesitate to elevate something like that. We don't want to see people Googling for days, calling multiple phone numbers for 4 or 5 days in a row and getting frustrated. We'd rather have you just call a central number like ours and let us help figure that out.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And before we actually get into the Q&A fully, thank you for answering that question. I know that I saw that one come in early. I'm actually going to turn it over to Amanda, who's going to present a little bit on some Fire Safe Council programs, and then we'll head back into the Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. Since we talked a bit about what the wildfire issue is and wildfire season, Santa Clara County and the state, and a little bit about defensible space and the projects that the Fire Safe Council has going on. And Zachary will send a list of links that I provided to the team, so you can go and look at our the county's wildfire protection plan that actually does have a project tracker that shows the different agencies and organizations that are doing different work throughout the county. It is a bit beta in development, so it's not fully complete, but it gives you a sense of what kind of projects in the community wildfire protection plan are happening, or maybe are being planned or trying to get funding for. But on top of the projects that we get, usually grant funding for to complete, and I did see a question in the chat, I'm sure we'll get a chance to answer that. We also have programs that are available to the community and the district. So it was mentioned earlier, the home ignition zone assessment. So when we're talking about wildfire preparedness, we start at the home with individual residents. Skylar's presentation on zone 0, 1, and 2. This is what we do. You invite us to come to your home. We look at your home hardening, the structure of your home, its vulnerabilities to wildfire, and then we move out and we look at those different zones, and then we produce a report for you. And again, the links that'll be provided to you after the webinar will take you there. After that, we've provided you with some education and some information and some next steps for you to take action. But we have our community chipping program. You've removed some fuels from around your property. Well, what do you do with it now? And the community chipping program helps to assist that. Now, I know a lot of you have come to the Fire Safe Council asking about the chipping program. It has not been available for the whole county the past couple of seasons. I'm working on getting that funding. So please reach out to me, check our website. I'm really feeling confident that we'll have that service more widely available to those of you that have not had it recently. So. And we also have our community ambassador program. This is a new program. It is a structured volunteer program that we are creating to better assist the community with their Firewise USA journey. So if you are a current or reside in a current Firewise community, this is just going to help strengthen your training, your understanding, and better support for regular recognition requirements. And if you're looking to become a new Firewise community, we are here to, again, provide support and training opportunities and things like that. So please, again, check out our website, sign up, and we'll be in touch. We also have a couple of rebate programs. So this one right now, this is our neighbor to neighbor. It's a community program. This is a cost share. So you would plan a project, pay a contractor, and go through all of the steps. And we would actually provide some financial assistance to do a community level project. And we have a special needs assistant program. This you would contact the Fire Safe Council if you fit into sorry, I'm looking for, sorry, it's getting late in the day. But if you could go for that program, we will plan the project, hire the contractors, and pay up to $5,000 to get fuels reduction done around your home. And now these two programs right now are currently grant funded. And that runs out at the beginning of next year. So please reach out to us. And then community outreach and education, us being able to come out and join you folks today on presentations like this. We have a calendar on our website. So if you're wanting to, please sign up to be part of the ambassador program. If you're wanting to know what's going on with the Fire Safe Council or our partners, you can see events that we're doing with County Fire on there. We're doing a lot of things throughout the year, throughout the county. I think that covers our current programs. Thank you so much.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much. And so now we'll head into the Q&A. One thing that we're getting a couple of questions on here, and so whoever can answer it, please feel free to do so. I'm going to combine a couple questions here that are sort of generally about being prepared in the event of wildfire that may be causing an evacuation or is threatening your home. We had a question about rooftop sprinkler systems and whether those could be effective, and as well as whether residents can use their own garden homes in any way to help prepare their home in the case of emergencies. So would either Chief Thornton or any of our Fire Safe Council people be able to answer maybe some general tips on in those emergency situations?
Sure, I can take the garden hose and rooftop sprinklers right off the bat. If there's a fire approaching and you're in an evacuation zone, we don't recommend you using a garden hose on your house. We would rather have you gather your things, have a plan, follow your plan, and evacuate safely and early so that we can get our people in and safely fight the fire. A garden hose just doesn't have enough water volume to put out any sort of substantial amount of fire. So, and you wouldn't have protective clothing or training. So we really don't recommend people attacking an approaching wildfire with a garden hose. Rooftop sprinklers, on the other hand, have their place. However, they are typically made of plastic or garden hose type rubber material that are subject to heat. And so they work until they work. And then once the fire causes a problem with the system, all you have is an open butt water line that is just either draining your water or draining community water, which is a component of what we saw in Southern California as homes burned, the pipes burst, and hundreds and hundreds of houses had water lines that were just flowing because the house burned to the ground, the water fittings collapsed, and you were left with water systems being just drained. So while they have their place, I don't think that those are the best answer. The best answer is to take care of your zone 0, zone 1, and zone 2, harden your homes with all of the new best practices in terms of windows and ceiling vents and so forth. Rooftop garden, rooftop sprinkler systems, I'm sorry, are not the best answer.
Yeah, if I can just echo Skylar, the best work you can do is preparing ahead of time and creating that defensible space. And we've got really wonderful trained professionals to do the firefighting. So we're lucky in the terms of natural disasters and wildfire, where we can plan and do the work ahead of time.
And on the subject of the evacuation component, please don't hesitate to, like I mentioned at the beginning, take a look at our website, sccfd.org, or readyforwildfire.org, which is the CAL FIRE website. Both have great information on developing a plan and implementing a plan to be prepared for evacuation. And that covers everything from packing lists and things like medication to consulting neighbors and family members out of the area and having a phone tree and knowing multiple ways in and out of wherever you live. So I strongly recommend you all take a look at those websites and work on developing your plan.
Great. Thank you so much for those. I know that we've had a few people putting in questions about fireworks legislation around that. And I know Seth messaged me saying that he'd be happy to talk a little bit more about that. And one of the questions specifically did recommend or ask our office to partner with Assemblymember Pellerin on such legislation. And any legislative requests like that, we're so happy to take in. And so that one will definitely be noted. But Seth, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for the question. We actually did a town hall with Assemblymember Perlin maybe 6 weeks ago or so, and that information and that presentation is available on her website. But regarding the specific question regarding fireworks, I will certainly bring that to her attention or to Marianne Groen, her legislative assistant, and obviously we'll ask them to get back to you and talk more about fireworks. That's a pretty complicated issue, and the Fire Safe Council per se doesn't get involved or engage on legislation specifically around fireworks, but I will bring that to the Assembly members' attention.
Now, let me just add, Zach, and to the listeners. I know there was one question, a real basic question as to, when is the state going to ban fireworks, just completely make them illegal? The fact of the matter is, and I'd love to hear from Chief Thornton on this, because they're the ones that have to go out and try to address all the calls and complaints they get. But even though you'll see a few municipalities around that are still selling the so-called safe and sane fireworks, the fact of the matter is that, as you can see, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of fireworks going off, most of which are already illegal in the state of California. Those aren't fireworks that people are buying at a stand in Gilroy typically. And it's not to say that the ones you buy in the stand can't start a fire. Of course they can. Many a horrific fire has been started by a sparkler, the least of perhaps all fireworks. But when you see basically fireworks shows going off, essentially people using the equivalent of rocket launchers to get their rockets up into the sky, and you see that all over the city of San Jose, all over Senate District 15. That is actually illegal activity, 100% illegal activity for the most part. So the real problem is there's not enough law enforcement personnel to respond to every one of those situations. And to date, no one's been able to figure out a way to, you can't make it more illegal than it already is. It's been hard to figure out a way, to create a larger law enforcement presence just on, a couple of holiday occasions during the year, whether it's the 4th of July or the Lunar New Year or what it is. And it's not as if we can bring in CHP from all over the state just to our area. It's happening all over the state. So that's kind of the problem. A limit on what resources government has available to go out and enforce the law that already exists. Chief, did you want to say anything about what it was like last week?
Well, last week and the last several 4th of Julys have been very active. We were tied up at a 15-acre fire in Santa Clara County, an unincorporated area between City of San Jose and City of Morgan Hill near the Coyote Creek Golf Course. That evening, the City of Gilroy also had a structure fire that multiple agencies assisted with, including us, and there were fireworks going off all over the place. My previous job was with the City of Salinas, and that is another very active community on the 4th of July with a very vocal group. Fireworks, unfortunately, have become a very polarizing topic because people want to celebrate. We encourage people to celebrate within the confines of the law, and people often choose not to do that. And the challenge, like the senator referred to, is that we don't have enough people to be in the right place at the right time to catch those that are lighting off the illegal fireworks. They do it in public areas so that if we do videotape them or catch them on camera, if neighbors catch them on camera and submit those to the authority having jurisdiction, if they're in a public area, there's no address to tie them to. And I've seen people blowing them off out of the back of pickup trucks driving down the street. If you can't get a license plate, it's really hard to catch the people. So fireworks are very difficult to enforce in terms of the catching people in the act and then processing those, because the legal system is already cluttered with a number of other issues and people who are choosing to not follow our rules of the land. And so then you have the folks that are against fireworks altogether. And so I think there has to be dialogue about legal fireworks shows so that people have a method to go and watch fireworks and celebrate, whether it's the 4th of July or some of the other holidays that were related. But I think we have to lean on the community to help us as the enforcement component of putting out methods to allow them to provide accurate intel, not just, hey, there's fireworks going off in my neighborhood, because everybody can see them, but it's very difficult to detect what the origin of those fireworks launches is. And we can't be everywhere at the right time. So I wish I had a better answer. And then the other side of it is the safety component. I've been to a number of calls where people have lost digits or hands, parts of appendages, because fireworks have blown off when they weren't expecting them to. And so there is also that unfortunate downstream effect of them.
All right, thank you, Chief Thornton. We had a couple questions related, somewhat related to one another. So hopefully we can kind of combine these into them. One of them, one of the residents, they live in the villages and their homes and condos have many bushes right next to their homes. And they wanted to know, do we have to remove these bushes to be fire safe? And another related question about that was another HOA decided to focus on the perimeter of the property on certain trees. It looks like there, juniper, rosemary, and acacia, instead of prioritizing the zone 0 area. So they wanted to get some thoughts on that strategy. They were told that the homes in the zone 0 areas would be addressed at a later time, but they just sort of wanted to get thoughts on that strategy. And so, yeah, I know Amanda, I know your mic just went on, so would you be able to answer some of that?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of this the senator can probably speak to. But talking about the zones 0, 1, and 2, yes, there's a lot of science that backs that up. As Chief Thornton described in his presentation, it's really important to be looking at creating the defensible space with an emphasis on zone 0. With the villages, I know that, and I don't want to speak for HOAs or any particular HOA, they have their own governance, but I know that we've done some work with the villages in recent time, and I know that they've got some large initiatives to tackle some of that. So my suggestion would be to reach out to your HOA of the villages or whomever. But yes, again, I don't want to step in the toes of any governance of a community. Typically, we do suggest removing, trimming, or doing maintenance, especially in your zone 0, that first 5 feet, to reduce fuels and create better defensible space.
Yeah, if I can just jump in for a moment, and thank you very much for that, Amanda. And I know Fire Safe Council has been really involved with the villages community in Southeast Evergreen. And for those of you who may not be aware of that community, it's a very large 55 and older community, and a lot of the folks are older than that. A lot of the folks have some limited mobility or disability, and there's a lot of concern about what would you do if you had to evacuate a place like that in short order, because they're right up against the East Foothills. And it's a common question. My parents, Dominic and Suzanne, live up there. They were just asking me a week ago whether or not the shrubbery behind their house, was safe, especially in an ember situation like the chief was talking about. What happens, there's a little bit of wind and something's coming off of those hills. They want to try to harden their home and be prepared. But I would say keep working with the Fire Safe Council. The villages community just received I want to say an award, but a certification as a fire safe community, and I think it may be the first one in Santa Clara County, if I remember right.
It is it's their Firewise USA recognition. It is the largest in Santa Clara County. We have 25 Firewise USA communities in the county, but this is the first one in San Jose.
Thank you for that. And now I just want to say, if you're not familiar with the villages and you're living in another community or just a single family homeowner or somebody living in an apartment complex somewhere, and you see that there's a lot of landscape growth around your building, those are good questions. It really depends a lot on what that landscape growth is. That's what we learned up at the villages. Surprisingly, the juniper that was growing up there was not considered by fire personnel who came out and looked at it multiple times as something that needed to be fully removed, for example. They were more concerned with the volunteer growth of oats, of remnants of red oak hay on those foothills that could catch on fire. And meaning if you get a vegetation fire uphill, that could do a lot more damage to anybody's home than the actual landscape vegetation. Professional landscape vegetation is seem to be, at least in that area, and I think in most of your home areas, a little bit less of a concern. One of the things we're going to do, and it's a bill that I'm a joint author of in the legislature, it's another bill that's moving along, and I believe it will absolutely get to the governor's desk, is the creation of a home hardening commission in the state of California, which will help, bring some uniformity to some of these questions that you're raising about, well, what does it really mean to harden around your home? Do you really need to eliminate everything or some things? And oh, by the way, what do you really get from that? Are you really going to be more fire safe? Are you going to get a break on your insurance for doing that? These are all things we recognize at the state legislative level that we need to make progress on, because folks like you have these questions, and we need to have the best answers possible and have a place for you to go to get those answers. In the meantime, if you have specific questions, like I said earlier, contact our office or put an email or something in the chat. Just contact Zach and after this webinar, and we'll get back to you. If we need to get somebody out there to look at your situation, we'll try to do that.
Thank you. And sort of as we're running out of time here, just one last really quick question, or one last question that hopefully can be answered pretty quick, but if not, we're happy to get that answer to you afterwards, is about how often you should be replacing an at-home fire extinguisher. How long are they good for? Can they be inspected, renewed? Any quick tips on home fire extinguishers?
Typically, fire extinguishers will have an expiration date on them, similar to smoke detectors. If you would like to have it inspected, you can consult the internet and find any of a number of fire extinguisher inspection companies that serve extinguishers. Those are primarily the larger commercial ones. And so, periodically, maybe once a year, shake it up if it's a dry powder extinguisher that you keep in your house, and ensure that it's not all caked down at the bottom. They should last for a long time, particularly if you check the gauge and ensure that the needle on the gauge on the top of the extinguisher is in the green pressurized zone. If the needle is outside of that small green area that indicates that it has the proper pressure, then either have it serviced or expel it and discard it. But there are, you can get new extinguishers at most any home supply store. And so that's kind of our best practice. And then feel free to consult, again, YouTube for extinguisher training for the basic PASS acronym, which is pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. And you pull the pin, aim the extinguisher hose at the base of the fire, squeeze the trigger, and sweep back and forth until the fire is out. And those are kind of your basic fire extinguisher best practices.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to Senator Cortese to close us out real quick. I know we have a lot of unanswered questions in the chat or in the Q&A. As the Senator said, feel free to send us an email and we'll get back to you with those answers.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. Thank you to all the staff. I mentioned all the names of the district office staff. When you hear about all these bills that I'm mentioning, keep in mind that we have another half dozen or so folks, including our chief of staff, Sunshine Borelli, and our deputy chief of staff, Tara Sri Krishnan, who's our legislative director, working at feverishly in Sacramento to get these things done, along with several legislative aides there. I want to just appreciate them and thank them while we have the opportunity. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists. I learned a lot. I hope others did. I thought I was going to know most of this today. I didn't. And I appreciate very much the quality of the panel today. Send those emails to us, to Zach's email address. Again, it's in the chat. If you have my email address or you want to go to our website, you can do that. But we want to get answers back to you. We'll get them back to you in writing. And like I said, if we can't, we'll get somebody at a state agency to help us answer your question. Thank you all so much and have a great evening.